It's a point of pride on this show that we talk about every single team and that, we include fan bases that don't really get a whole lot of national media attention. So obviously, we're going to lead off today's show talking Chiefs and Ravens, you know, one for the little guy. But beyond that, we're also talking about other markets that never get discussed, like New York and LA. A lot of small teams here in today's show, EJ. And also the Dolphins. But mainly we're talking Dolphins because there's a stat that I discovered before we did today's show that I didn't think was possible. But Miami has made it possible. So fun, stacked show today. Hope you guys enjoy. EJ, before we hit the intro, how are you?
I'm good. We get a little bit of the roundup, top to the bottom of the league today, and there's interesting points all the way down, and that's something else we do on Bootleg. We make even the games that you probably aren't going to watch or wouldn't if you didn't have to, somewhat interesting.
Well, a couple of these games you absolutely have to watch because I think they're going to be peak cinema. The other ones, maybe catch the condensed version, but we'll talk about them all. Neil, without further ado, please roll the intro. Welcome to the Bootleg Football Podcast. I'm Brett Coleman. That's EJ Snyder. We have 4 good games for you today. We're going to be going over Colts, Rams, Jets, Dolphins, Ravens, Chiefs, and Panthers, Patriots. And then we got 3 more games for you on our second preview show of the week, which drops probably tomorrow on the Patreon. Whatever day this drops, which I think is going to be Friday. Again, slightly behind this week, but, we're managing, we're surviving, we're in the middle of the NFL season. Forgive us. But again, we're doing a second preview show as usual over on the Patreon. You can catch that there. Tomorrow, we're going to do 3 more games. Let us know who you want us to talk about. Shall we just kind of dive in here and start with Colts Rams each?
I think we should. This is going to be a really good game. And again, one of those games that if you had asked folks in August, hey, are you looking forward to Colts Rams? I don't think a lot of people would have shot their hands up. But if you're looking at the slate of games that's up for this weekend, this is going to be a matchup that tells us a lot about both of these teams. And I think those games are always exciting. So for the Colts, something has to give here in this matchup. Jonathan Taylor rushing for 5.6 yards a pop with 16 missed tackles forced and 7 explosive runs in only 3 games. Rams run defense only allowing 3.9 per rush. That's 11th best in the league. So this is good on good. And I think it's the backbone of what's going to shape how this one plays out. If the Rams are able to bottle up the rush game, we're going to see more put on Daniel Jones's plate. He's been able to handle that this year, but they will have to pivot, maybe, be forced to play with their left hand, as Bill Belichick liked to say, and we'll see how that goes. If they can't, the Colts have shown that they will just continue. The beatings will continue until the run defense improves against teams that don't have it. So I think that's going to be sort of the core tenet of offense versus defense in this one. We'll see how it goes. Again, the Colts aren't out of bullets. That in past years, if that got shut off, they were pretty much done. Their quarterback play hasn't supported kind of pivoting in the middle of a game. This year, and we'll talk about it, Daniel Jones is playing well enough that if the game gets put in his lap, it's not over for Indianapolis.
I feel like the spine of this offense is twofold. One, it's the offensive line has been awesome in pass protection, and they have been helped out a lot because this is the second highest rate of play action out of every offense in the NFL this year. They're very high in RPO percentage. So they do have manufactured protection isn't the right way to phrase it, but you know what I mean? Where it's like they slow down the pass rush by using scheme a lot more than other teams, especially because they line up under center a lot as well. So just naturally, like they're gonna expose their quarterback to pressure less because they lean so much on play action. But at the same time, Daniel Jones has navigated pressure very well. He has hit the throws that he's asked to hit. I talked a couple weeks ago about how Denver threw man coverage at him 8 times on third down in that game with a very good secondary, and he converted on 6 of them, which is extremely impressive against that Bronco defense, especially a Bronco defense that brings pressure more than almost anybody else. So the offensive line has held up really well. Daniel Jones has thrown it really well. But the other core of the spine here, or the other half of the spine here, is Jonathan Taylor with the ball in his hand. It's been a good pass protecting line, like I mentioned. Not exactly a great run blocking line. They are 25th in the league in terms of yards before contact per attempt on average at just 0.7. But yards after contact per attempt, that's all JT, 3.6. That's fourth best in the NFL. He has been amazing at both making guys miss in space or just straight up breaking tackles. He's not really getting the best blocking in front of him, but he's making it work. They've ripped off a bunch of explosives. And the fact that he's been able to make either something out of nothing or a lot out of something every single carry means that they can lean more on play action. It means that they are in more neutral, run pass situations, which helps out Daniel Jones. So on one hand, yes, the offensive line is playing great as a pass protecting unit, but it's JT that's keeping that unit on schedule by making them right in the run game.
Yeah, and going back to that theme of something's got to give in this game, Colts passing attack. Close your ears, for this is the division you care about. They are the second best in yards per attempt in the league, 9.3 yards per pass attempt. Yes, we are talking about the Indianapolis Colts here. However, the Rams on defense are only allowing 5.4. So that's about half. Something's got to give. You talked about the protection. The Colts offensive line has been tremendous. They've only allowed 18 pressures all season through 3 games in true passing situations. And the Rams defensive line, not only probably the best unit on the team, one of the best units in the NFL. 50 total pressures in those same situations in 3 games. That is 16.6 per game, folks. That is ridiculous production. All the regular suspects are there: Verse, Young, Turner, but they're getting even more contribution from a vet and rook combo. Puna and Josiah Stewart, one of our favorites from draft that ended up playing in LA, are also chipping in. So we're going to be talking about pressure stats for each team as we go through these games. Just remember that the Rams are getting 16.6 pressures per game in true drop back pass situations. That is a ridiculous rate. But again, as you said, the Colts offensive line has played great. So we have great rushing attack, but pretty good run defense. We got a great passing attack, pretty good pass defense. We've got a great O-line. We've got the best defensive line, probably pass rushing in the NFL right now. Something's got to give with these teams, and we're going to see when they go good on good or best on best, who gets through the other side.
For reference, by the way, on that Rams pass rush, that's like 60% more than the Panthers do. Like, it's from top of the league to bottom of the league, there is a massive canyon in between those two pass rushes. And the Rams are one of the absolute best. I will say, just to take a moment to talk about the Colts pass rush, they've invested a lot in that over the last several years. And if we're looking at, again, dichotomy between great pass rush and not great pass rush, this game is one of the starkest differences that we've seen so far this season, because the Colts, by virtually every single metric, are a bottom 5 pass rush. And so you're going to see one team dominate the line of scrimmage on the defensive side of the ball, and the other, quite frankly, just try to survive. And that is my biggest concern with the Colts here. It's not if their offense can stay on schedule. So far, they've had no issue doing that. It's more so, can their defense not buckle? I worry about the health of their secondary. I know they're not going to match up with Buka and Devontae. But I also don't think they're going to be able to capitalize on what so far has been a banged up Rams offensive line, because their pass rush is basically a wet noodle. I think their run defense is okay, but not great. And, the formula for this Colts team has been just completely suffocate their opponent with time of possession and offensive efficiency and protect their defense by playing really good, efficient offense. Now they're going up against an offense that can match them blow for blow, like fairly handily, with the Rams. And if it comes down to it, okay, if they're matching score for score, And it kind of gets into that situation where all of a sudden it's like, now we need to do the damn thing. And we got Jared Verse on the other side. That's where I really worry about Indy here. They're kind of going up against a team that is quite frankly built to beat them. And I would be kind of surprised if they come out with the win in this one.
Yeah. Matt Stafford, still a football cannon. He's ridiculous. So number one in shortest time to throw. And I think that just really highlights that sort of veteran savvy pre-snap read. There's nothing Stafford hasn't seen at this point, and he is able to diagnose pre-snap as well as anyone in the NFL. Shows in that time to throw. He is second in big time throw percentage, 7th in yards per attempt and touchdowns, 11th in average depth of target, and 12th in passer rating, 13th in adjusted completion percentage. Like, all the tales of Matthew Stafford's demise were greatly exaggerated. He is still chucking it at a very high level. And part of the reason for that, you got to talk about the other end of the connection. Puka is unstoppable. There really isn't any other word for it at this point. First in catches and yards, second in yards per route run and reception percentage, 12th in yak per reception, and does not have a drop yet this season. Also blocks his ass off. Always have to throw that in there. Everybody knows he's coming to town every week. And by this point, every NFL team is well aware that, as goes Puka, so go the Rams. Everybody's trying to stop him. It's not that they're just like, oh, we'll just let him have his production. And he gets it every single week. It doesn't matter if it's man. It doesn't matter if it's zone, doubles. He is big enough, strong enough, smart enough. He continues to learn and grow as a wide receiver. And yeah, if you think you're just going to get into a boat race with the Rams offense, good luck, because those guys are operating at a very high level. And if you somehow manage to slow Puka down, I'm not going to say stop him. Oh yeah, they got Devontae Adams on the other side.
And this is the thing is, like, I just don't think they have enough guys to handle them, right? Because Kenny Moore, he has a calf injury. As of right now, he doesn't really have a timetable for return. He's not playing in this game, apparently, or maybe even a few games. So you got the corpse of Xavier Howard, which he's not the same player that he used to be. And you got Charvarius Ward, who I think still is a good player, but he's one guy, right? Going up against two, at minimum, top 12 receivers. If talking about Devontae, Puka's a top. I'll let you fill in the number. It ain't lower than 4.
Yeah, I'm not really going past 3 with that, just because of the completeness of his game. You can cherry pick stats and say another receiver is better or hasn't been used or has more potential. But in terms of like across the board potential impact, I'll say agnostic fit, a receiver that you could literally drop into any offensive situation in the NFL and he would play well. Puka's not below 3.
And I don't think they have an answer for it, because Charvarius can't be everywhere at once. And even then, I would still give the edge for either one of those guys over Charvarius Ward. And I think Charvarius Ward is a good player, but we're talking about, top shelf weapons here with a top shelf quarterback that can put the ball anywhere he wants it to. It's just a really, really tough matchup here. And that's why when I was building our show pick'em slip for the week, because if you guys don't know, we do an underdog pick'em slip with one pick for every single game that we cover. I did Devontae higher than 68.5 receiving. Puka was at 90, by the way, which I was like, all right, yeah. They're just pricing it in at that point. I can't be that crazy. But Devontae at 68.5, because I was like, if they just double Puka and Devontae's one-on-one against Xavier outside, like, sorry, he's winning that. He's winning it 10 out of 10 times. So, for one, does that sound crazy? And number two, what kind of number would it have to be for Devontae for it to be crazy?
It's not crazy. I believe he can easily hit that. And you've got your Dolphins stat that blows your mind. I've got a Jets receiving stat on the other side that'll twist your head around. So we'll talk about it then. I'm going to kind of answer your question with a question and go back to Puka and say, how high would it have to be for Puka before I jump on board? Because 90 is up there, but if there's somebody I'm jumping on the plus side of 90 for, Puka's one of those guys. So like it's the old what would you pay game. Like how high does it have to go for Puka before you're like, nah? And for me, it's probably like 105. At that point, I'm like, okay, that's ridiculous. Like at 90, I still think he's going to top it. So Devontae, not that much higher, maybe 75, because again, he's going to have games this year where he goes over 100, and I'm not going to say the main focus, but he is, an equal focus of the offense for the Rams. Maybe comes out with a touchdown or not, but there's also going to be games where he's going to have 65 or 55 or whatever. He's just not going to get his catches. They're going to get spread around because Stafford will spread the ball around. He's always going to get them to Puka, but Devontae's production is going to go up and down. So I can see that number and say, yeah, I like it. I think he'll be higher than that, but there will be weeks he will drop below that. Whereas Puka, I'm like, there's not going to be many weeks outside of, being out of the lineup where he's going to be below 90.
So you see Puka as like 2015 Antonio Brown, where it's like, I don't care. It's like, I don't care what the number is. I don't care what the matchup is.
It's not that I don't care. It's that it has to be really high. And 90 feels like that's high, but it's not high enough to keep me off of it because he has proved that every week, even though everybody's loaded for bear, he still produces.
It's that Bull Durham quote. Two-seam fastball, high and tight, can't hit it, can't lay off it. Like you see 105, you're like, fuck it, let's roll. Let's do it, baby. All right. So again, that's the first. We have 3 more to go in our pick'em. If you guys want to either tail this or you think I'm a complete moron and you want to do the exact opposite, of course, if you use the link in the description below or the QR code on the screen, use promo code bootleg at Underdog Fantasy. You play $5, you get $50 in credit. They have sponsored us for years at this point. We once again appreciate them for their support and their belief in our community. We have some big contests coming up with Underdog in the future. We're kind of working on that in the background right now. You're going to see more. But for now, we're doing our pick'ems of destiny. Do you have a pick for the game, by the way?
When you're looking at the cornerback injuries for Indy, I don't love that particular matchup. That's like opening the door for the strength of a Rams, which is their passing game. I would say Rams. And whenever you have that defensive line the Rams have, all the kind of offensive success statistics, say that 10 times fast, just kind of go out the door. Like, oh, well, if they get behind and they bottle up JT, then, hey, Daniel Jones, you can just put the ball in his hands and, oh, yeah, he still has to face all 5 of those killers on the defensive line. Good luck. The stats aren't going to look the same.
I'm going to go Rams as well, but I'm going to go even further. I think Rams in a 2-possession win.
Ooh,
like,
okay.
I think it's going to be more than 8.
Spicy.
I look at the matchups here and I'm like, ugh, I don't feel great about it for Indy. I think Indy is a good team. I think right now they're probably inside track to win the division. I trust them more than I trust Jacksonville at this point, and I definitely trust them more than I trust Houston at this point. Houston can't get his shit together at all. So I still think they're probably in line to win the division, but this is a tough game. If you're watching this, there's a non-zero chance that you're in the trades, which if you are, don't skip this ad because I'm holding a bottle of Canadian whiskey, and I am told that is the currency of your people. I myself am not in the trades, obviously, but I do have a wife whose job it is to just walk across rebar mats all day long, and apparently, according to her, having the right boots is like 60% of the job. And I'll tell you this much, the boots from today's sponsor, Brunt Workwear, are comfortable. EJ and I both got the Marin soft toe boots because neither one of us works on a job site every day. We don't need a composite toe. But regardless of what your safety requirements are, they have the same level of comfort across all of their boots. Even if you just need a normal pair of work boots for anything you're doing in your backyard or your garage, or, I mean, hell, I'm going to use them for hiking as well. Like, these are waterproof boots. And I need waterproof boots to do a trail near my house that's called Bridge to Nowhere, where I have to cross through a river like 4 to 5 times. I'm probably going to take these boots on that hike. Just whatever you need to throw at these boots, they can probably handle it. So if you're looking for a new pair of boots yourself and you prioritize comfort and durability over everything else, check out Brunt at bruntworkwear.com and the link in the description. And if you find something you like in their catalog, you can use promo code BOOTLEG to give you a $10 discount. Again, that catalog is found at bruntworkwear.com or at the link in the description below. And if you find something you like, use promo code BOOTLEG to get you a $10 discount. Thank you to Brunt once again for partnering with the show. And with that, let's get back to it. Now, before we get to the next game on the docket, which is Jets Dolphins, I have to take a drink of something or else I won't get through it, honestly. So we're just going to do our shot of the week now. As you remember, we're doing 2 shots of the week this week because we're making up ground from last week because our scheduling snafu due to acts of God, literally. So we did our first shot of the week, which was a makeup shot on Tuesday. Now is the real quote unquote shot of the week. And by a very razor thin margin of 2% in the vote over on our public poll on the Patreon, Mac Wilson, decleating CMC, is today's winner for the bootleg shot of the week, the second one. The second only bootleg shot of the week. I have Drift, which is a weeder locally made down in San Clemente. Sort of ish, kind of near where I live. What do you have each?
Old Forester 1920 Prohibition style, one of my favorite variants from Old Forester. Good sipper, but also an excellent mixer if you choose to use it that way. Game of inches, right? 2%. Here's to you, Mac.
Cheers to you, Mac. Congratulations on winning an award that you have no idea even exists.
A few moments later.
All right. Now that I've properly recovered from that, because I didn't eat lunch, which, again, I really got to stop doing shots of the week after not eating all day. Terrible idea. Again, congratulations to you, Mac Wilson. I'm going to try to get through the rest of the show in under an hour because I also have a full pour of Tullamore Dew that I have to get through. So we're going to do this before things get bad. Next game on the docket, Jets Dolphins. Yay.
Come on, man. I'm going to fire it up. This is in honor of our former editor, Jay, who is a Jets fan. And we got to talk about the Jets. And we thought we were going to have more fun talking about the Jets this year than we look to be having so far. But quick summary of this Jets team. They can run 4.6 yards per attempt, 13th best in the league. They can't pass 144.7 per game. That's 31st in the league in terms of production. Receiving wise, it's Garrett Wilson and nobody else. I feel like we're talking about the Lions pass rush with Aiden, right? It's Aiden versus the world. It's Garrett Wilson versus the world. I said earlier I had a Jets stat that's going to blow your mind. Okay. Wilson has 229 yards in 3 games, 76 a game. Nobody else on the Jets roster even has 80 total in that stretch.
What? Is it nobody's getting 30 yards a game?
Hang on. It gets worse. Only 3 others on the roster. And I'm not talking about wide receivers. I'm talking about eligible tight ends, running backs, whatever. Only 3 others even have over 25 yards total.
Ew.
A lot of receivers can get 25 yards in a catch or 2 catches. That's 2 catches in 3 games total would get you 25 yards in a typical situation. Not a typical situation. So it is literally Garrett Wilson and nobody else. On top of that, this Jets team starts slow. They are 23rd in first quarter scoring, averaging just 4 points on average in the first quarter. They fit the run just fine, and I mean just fine. They're 4.1 yards against for the run, 15th in the league. That's dead average. We've seen lots of teams have success being average, playing the run. That's fine. They struggle versus the pass. Here's the theme, 7.2 yards per attempt allowed. That's 25th in the league. And
how is that possible? They signed Brandon Stevens. I thought he was going to fix everything, EJ.
Oh,
what?
Boy. Here we
you
are
again.
again.
Tell me Brandon Stevens isn't a good corner? I'm shocked.
I mean to tell other people that jumped on our case when we said, what, you're not a Brandon Stevens fan? And we're like, well, not exactly, considering the options they had. Hasn't played out that way. And the bottom line of gestures and everything is they haven't locked down the scoring defense yet. They are allowing 31 points a game, which is 28th in the NFL. So in summary, they can run. They can play the run. That's it. Like, they can't pass. They don't have a ton of receiving options. They're not scoring a ton of points. They're allowing a ton of points, and that is adding up to struggles early on. Now, does this mean they're doomed for eternity? No, I actually kind of like the direction the Jets are heading in, but it was never going to be instant with this team. Like, new head coach, I think the culture he is going to establish is fine. It was never going to happen in the first quarter pole of the season. That's just not a reasonable expectation. He's trying to turn it around. And if you look at where he came from, Detroit, it didn't happen for them either. Now, it's very easy in hindsight to look back at Detroit and say, oh, we always knew this was going to work. Dan Campbell's a genius and Brad Holmes is amazing. And this is always going to be a pairing that You look at this point of where Dan Campbell took over Detroit. Their owner had to have a press conference saying, I believe in Dan Campbell. Y'all should shut the hell up. I know he hasn't won yet. He's going to win. And everybody went, I don't know. And look at where Detroit is now. Detroit just ran the Ravens off the freaking field. Like, that culture has changed completely, but it took a while. It's revisionist history to say, oh yeah, Dan Campbell took over and everything changed. It did, but he literally had to get a vote of confidence from his owner like 6 games into his first season. Like, chill out, it's going to happen. Give the Jets the same amount of rope and we'll see whether or not they can get themselves out.
My issue with the Jets, well, I wouldn't even say it's an issue. Like, I don't even think the Jets are a bad team. I think the Jets are in a better spot now than when Dan Campbell took over the Lions.
I would agree with that as well.
You know, if you're looking at the first game against the Steelers, we were very positive about the Jets because Justin Fields played well. The offensive line played well. Brees looked great. The defense, they get a lot of tackles for loss. I'll tell you that much. Like, they really do. In fact, I think I have the actual number here. I'm pretty sure they're like number 1 in TFLs. Hold on, scrolling. I have like 20 pages of notes here.
Yep.
That I'm getting through. Yes, they are first in tackles for loss the first 3 games at 21, which is a lot. But they are 30th in terms of passing EPA per play allowed because they play a lot of man coverage and they can't play man coverage. They have one guy who can do it, but unfortunately, there's more than just one receiver on the field. Apparently, unless you're facing the Jets, then there really is one receiver on the field. But
so you're saying the Jets scrimmages are just tooth and nail.
Overall, like, I find this defense infuriating because like, I understand what Glenn's trying to do because they were very man heavy in Detroit and they lost a bunch of guys due to injury in Detroit and they still played a bunch of man and they still made it work. And like, they just conjured up pass rush with like Aleem McNeil and the power of friendship. And like, I get it. I 100% get it. But man, this is a different team. This is a very different team. Like, they don't have the dudes to play that style right now.
No.
And I think their saving grace in this matchup is that Miami's worse. And that's what really frustrates me about the Jets more than anything is like, I know the potential is in there. I really do. Like, I think this can absolutely be a solid team. I think the offense could be good. I think the defense has pieces to be really good. They just have not crossed that barrier yet. And it's frustrating to me knowing what's in there. And that I just don't know when that's going to come out. I could say the same thing for Miami. It's like, we look at the pieces this offseason, not you, but I was like, okay, they've invested in the trenches, offensive and defensive side of the ball. It's like, I know what's in there. I know they can do it. Then they come out in the season and you're like, Jesus, this is terrible. Like, this is almost unwatchable for the first 2 weeks. They put up a fight. They scrapped hard against the Bills, but ultimately, like, again, they're not good enough. And, it took a kind of a crazy fourth quarter turn of events for them to even be in position to win that game. And then Tua throws it away. And you're like, I see the roster. I see what's in there. I don't think it's going to come out under this current staff and with this current quarterback. And so it's these two teams that frustrate me endlessly playing against each other because they're not as good as they should be. And I don't know what to make of it, honestly.
It is a very interesting matchup because of that, because it is a division rivalry and they are both on the struggle bus at the moment. It's a good time for us to talk about the Dolphins because honestly, if we talked about them after week 1 or week 2, I would have required multiple shots to even open it up because they were in a really, really rough place. And again, even after the first half in Buffalo, I was in a similar place saying this team just can't get out of its own way. They finally showed some life in the second half against Buffalo, being left for dead on the road. They rushed for 5.8 yards a carry between Achane and Ollie Gordon, who's been a pleasant surprise. Tyreek and Waddle both had 5 catches. They each scored, which was nice. Hadn't seen that. But this offense is going to come down because of the way they built the team, because of who's coaching, because of the offense, because of everything, unless they get some production from Tua. And that hasn't been the case. Like, people have been on Tua for the last couple of years, but he's actually been producing when he's been on the field. This year, they're correct to be on Tua about not producing. He has the 3rd worst turnover-worthy play percentage, the 8th worst pressure to sack percentage. He's 19th in adjusted completion percentage. He's 23rd in NFL passer rating. He is, here's the kicker, 32nd in average depth of target. He has a 5-4 touchdown to interception ratio. Like, you can't win. And you can talk about scheme and everything else and, taking the shackles off and letting him throw it more than 0.3 yards per pass. All that's fine, but haven't taken advantage of the opportunities. And that's what people have been saying for years, but he actually has been. Like, Miami had the best deep passing game in the league at one point in the last couple of years.
That's what's annoying is like all the criticisms of Tua that I disagreed with in the past are like actually real now.
And now they're coming true.
And now they're coming true. And I'm like, it wasn't always this way. It's just gotten worse.
Right. You weren't right before. You're right now, but you weren't right before. And like, when you combine that with the defense, and we like a lot of talent they have on defense, but defensively they're, and I put okay in my notes against the run if you squint, but they're rough versus the pass. They're allowing 4.5 yards per rush, 22nd in the NFL. It's not great, but we've seen teams flirt with that and still be decent. The problem is you have to be really good against the pass if you're going to be that average against the run. 8.5 yards per attempt against the pass. That's 30th in the NFL. The pass rush, which you're going to harp on, and I will let you have your soapbox moment, is woeful. 15 pressures in true passing situations in 3 games. Remember I said that the Rams have 16.6 per game? Miami has 15 in 3 games. That's 5 per game. So 5 versus 16. You can do the math. It's not great. The corners aren't much better. So if you don't have pass rush, you better have lockdown corners. Jason Marshall Jr. is allowing an NFL passer rating of, put on your earmuffs, 158.3. 7 catches.
I think that's actually a perfect passer rating.
Close as you get, because it's 7 catches on 7 targets, 12.6 yards per reception. We're not talking about dink and dunk stuff here. Jack Jones, who was added to this roster late, is allowing a passer rating of 115.4 at 6 catches on 10 targets, 12 yards per. And then you get to kind of, this is the sort of hidden statistic. And while we love to bring you nuance on bootleg, I do not love to bring you this, Dolphins fans. The linebackers are getting destroyed. Terrell Dodson's getting picked on big time. He's allowing an NFL passer rating of 121.3, 15 catches on 17 targets, 9.5 per. And Jordan Brooks, who we know is mobile and can play the pass, not much better. 115.3. That's 8 catches on 9 targets, 13.1 per. So if you're talking about those 2 linebackers in the middle and the outside corners being just basically absolute sieves and no pass rush, talking about 5 pressures a game, you're not stopping anybody. You're tissue paper on defense. I don't care what Tua and the offense do, and it hasn't been great by any stretch, but there's no way you're going to keep up with a defense that's allowing basically free access to the middle third. you're just not going to win that way. And it doesn't bring me any pleasure to like heap on a team, but I'm with you. When you look at this roster construction, when you look at the current performance, when you look at even players that we were excited about as rookies or who've had great, performances in the past, I don't see a way out of this right now.
People keep talking about how the Cowboys defense might be the worst in the NFL. The Cowboys are 31st in EPA per play allowed. The Dolphins are 32nd. Like that's the kind of bad we're talking about. Is even the Cowboys are like, ugh, they suck. Like it's awful.
Yeah.
And I alluded to it earlier in the show. This is the only team I can recall ever seeing that was simultaneously number 1 in blitz rate and 32nd in pressure rate. So they blitz more than anybody and get less pressure than anybody. Those two things should not happen. They shouldn't even be in the same neighborhood together. I don't even know how it's possible, but the Miami Dolphins have somehow manifested that into their defense. And I know people are like, yeah, but their secondary is so banged up and just so untalented to begin with that, okay, clearly quarterbacks are just getting the ball out early because they can't cover anybody. Not really. Their average time to throw against is 2.82 seconds. That is dead average in the NFL. So if you have a dead average time to throw against you and you're just not getting pressure while also being the blitz happiest team in the NFL, that's a fucking problem, EJ. And we looked at the roster this summer. We're like, okay, they got Jalen, they got Chubb coming back. Like Chop had a good rookie year. Jalen doesn't look the same since his injuries, multiple injuries. Chubb's injuries also have just kind of sapped everything from him. Chop has been banged up, and he's been dealing with his own injury issues since July, I think it is when he got hurt. So it's like all three of their edge rushers either are not healthy or have not been healthy. Their interior, like they're not getting a whole lot from the and they invested in the interior, still not getting a whole lot from it. Like the only thing this team can really do is run the ball, and that's kind of it. And even then, it's like, okay, but one of their games that they run the ball was against Buffalo, who can't stop the run. So, if they face a team that has anything going for it as far as a run defense, like what does Miami have? Not a whole lot. So, like we have spent so much time talking about this team this September and how bad they are, but we're talking about them a lot now because I know we're not going to be talking about them in December. I'll tell you that much right now. And probably November either. Like they are going to fall behind quick and early in this division, let alone in the conference. There will be changes made, and the next time you hear us talk about the Dolphins, it will probably be draft coverage.
Yeah, it feels very much like a team that, again, doesn't bring me any pleasure to say it, is ripe for a fire sale. Right? Mm-hmm. Just, we know it's going to change. Let's see if we can stack some assets. Let's see if we can make the next draft a little bit better, get a few extra picks, offload some contracts. Like, let's clear the decks as much as we can, because like this, and again, gestures at everything, the offense, the defense, like this is not working. I run into Dolphins fans, one of the dads of the, football team my son's on is a Dolphins fan, introduced himself as such. And all I could say was, sorry, man. And he's like, I know. It was like, everybody knows. And it is going to result in massive change, which we're never really happy if we see it, but we also don't see another way out.
On the flip side, I do see a way out, quote unquote, for the Jets. I do see a path to improvement. Justin Fields was a full participant in practice as of the day of us recording this, so he's going to be back. Again, he had a strong week 1, not a great week 2. We'll see what happens in his third game this season. This offensive line, I thought they've had ups and downs mostly, but more ups than downs. Armand Membu looks like he's going to be a hit. Like they can still run the ball, in my opinion. And if they just stopped playing man coverage with guys that can't cover in man, I think the defense would be fine as well. So there's a path for the Jets being, they're not going to be a playoff team. I don't think they will, but like there's a path for the Jets being respectable And, you look at this year as like a building block for 2026. You nail the draft again. You hope that Justin is still a solid starter. And you circle back in 2026, maybe make a play for a wild card. Like there's a path for them there. I don't see a path for Miami, at least not a good one. So it's unfortunate, but for as many great teams as there are in the NFL, there's always an equal and opposite number of terrible teams. And I think that's unfortunately one of them. We're going to get right back to the show in just a second, but I want to thank the HOF app for helping to make this show possible as one of our sponsors. And if you don't know who they are and you like to play either parlays or pick'ems, this is the app for you. They're not an operator themselves, they're just a parlay optimizer, and they use 500 million different data points and have analyzed over 800,000 parlays. You could research player props, you can get different parlay ideas from the leaderboards, and in general, just make your parlays or your pick'ems that much more efficient. In my deep experience of blowing my final legs on parlays and pick'ems, it can help just to get an extra set of eyes on whatever you're planning on doing that weekend and maybe use some data to talk you out of some really bad ideas. So if that sounds appealing to you, you can find the HOF app on iOS and Android. And if you use promo code BOOTLEG, you'll get a 7-day free trial and 50% off your first month. Again, that is promo code BOOTLEG on the HOF app. Find that on iOS and Android. You're going to get a 7-day free trial and 50% off your first month. Thank you to the HOF app for sponsoring. And with that, let's get back to the show. Next game on the docket, Ravens-Chiefs. Two teams that are desperately still trying to be considered among the league's best. And yet one of them, at the end of Sunday, is going to be 1-3. And at that point, it's tough for me to still consider you a Super Bowl contender if you start the season 1-3. Again, we liked both these teams a lot in the summer, but there are very real flaws here, and teams don't start out that poorly unless you have very, very real flaws.
The Ravens are struggling in a way that we hoped that they wouldn't this year, and it's the same way that they struggled last year before they finally lit it up in the second half of the season. Their defense is abysmal. We will talk about Lamar on the offense plenty, and they have put up points this year. They have done their half. Zach Orr's defense struggled a little bit early on, and we said, but they'll turn it around quickly this year. They won't take half the season, will they? And they've kind of fallen back in the trough. We're going to illustrate that a little bit. So the Ravens got run the hell over. They were roadkill versus Detroit. Montgomery and Gibbs had 218 yards on 34 carries, which is 6.4 per carry. Now, if you pull out Montgomery's explosive run, 72 yards, it's only 4.4. And I say only because that's a season average, would have them at 20th in the NFL if you're the Ravens. That's not terrible. You can survive. Good news for the Ravens is that Casey's rushing attack is only averaging 100 per game. Detroit is 150. So if you're talking about rushing attack versus rushing attack, you're going to have a better day if you're the Ravens facing the KC rushing attack than you are if you're facing the Lions rushing attack. But the bad news for Baltimore, they're allowing the second most pass yards per game in the league, 266. The aforementioned Dallas Cowboys are the only team that's worse. And pass defense and pass offense, quite frankly, as we've highlighted every year in the summer series, are more important statistics as to how you will end up in the NFL than your rush offense or your rush defense. So Casey's passing offense started to click in the second half versus the Giants, and that is bad news for Baltimore because, again, Zach Orr's defense needs to find its footing. They miss Madubuike, I think, more than all of us thought they would. And more bad news for Ravens fans. Harbaugh came out today and said, I'm not sure about Madubuike's injury status, and I'm not cleared to talk about it.
Which means it's bad.
Which is not great. Yes, that's exactly what that means. And if you're the Ravens and you're okay against the run, but struggling desperately, I'm talking bottom of the barrel against the pass, you're missing one of your best defensive line defenders, and you're facing a KC pass offense that started to look like it was getting its footing, even if it was only shots to Tyquan Thornton against the Giants. I don't love the matchup defensively for the Ravens against Kansas City.
When I look at a lot of the Ravens' defensive struggles, it wasn't just, personnel mismatches. Like I thought the Lions' offensive line just kicked their ass up and down the field. Like that was very apparent. The Ravens couldn't necessarily rush the passer. They weren't winning their one-on-ones. They were getting blown off the ball in the run game. Like there's the player component to this. Dan Campbell absolutely had them ready to play, but there's also the scheme component. And I've seen all these different, clips and photos from all the other, like all 22 film watcher community. And everybody's been kind of parsing through it. And there was one that I saw where it's like, it was low red zone and they went into an FIB look. So the formation into boundary, there's, most of the receiving threats are into the boundary. And you could tell they did that on purpose, because if you have a defense that aligns the nickel to the fields, if they're aligning based on field boundary rather than passing strength, and the offensive coordinator picks up on that, and then they know that they can go into FIB and basically have your nickel all of a sudden be a linebacker. That's how you have Marlon Humphrey playing linebacker 4 yards off the end zone. So I thought they were very predictable. Like you saw them giving not just one, but two bubbles against wing looks, where it's like, okay, are we trying to stop the run or not here? Clearly not. So they just ran all over them. Like from an alignment perspective and just being gap sound and not getting out schemed, quite frankly, I thought Zach Orr did a really bad job in that game. And that is a continuation of the really bad job in the first 2 weeks. And that's also something that we saw early on last year, right? Like it wasn't just that, okay, they had a deficiency at safety, which they rectified halfway through the year. Like it wasn't just that. It was also the fact that Zach Orr, through scheme, was doing nothing to not expose those bad safeties that he had last year until he made the switch. And he kind of, in a way, got saved by that personnel switch rather than anything that he was doing scheme-wise. He just, again, I don't want to say lucked out that all of a sudden his safeties were better because he's the one who opted to make the switch in the first place. But at the same time, it was week 11, Zach. Like, do we have to wait till week 11 to do that? To realize, like, oh, we should probably switch who's playing safety for us? And you just see this pattern of, like, slow responses from him as far as, like, swapping out personnel for guys that aren't playing well, or, getting caught with really unfavorable looks pre-snap. And it's like, it hasn't been good overall. Like, they played well at the end of last year once they finally figured it out, but that was 70% of the way through the season. If you fall to 1-3 this year, like, I don't think it's going to matter how good you are in December. Like, you're not going to get the 1 seed at that point. You're going to be on the road for the playoffs the entire time. Like, I don't know, man. It's just, I don't want to say he's a bad coach, but he's doing things that bad coaches do.
I would agree with you. And the disparity here that I picked up on a research that, again, just kind of spins my head is everybody blames Lamar for these losses. Baltimore is number 1 in points scored per game. Literally, their offense is the best in the league. 37 points a game. You're putting up 37 points a game, and we're still talking about you as a target to be knocked off in any game? How bad is your defense if that's the case? If you're the number 1 scoring offense in all of football, and yet we're like, I don't know if they're going to win. Look, man, it's not Lamar's fault. It's not Todd Monken's fault. They are 31st in the league in scoring defense. They're giving up 32 a game. So you're scoring 37, but you're giving up 32, and you're living in this incredibly thin margin of like, well, that better be our 5 points or we're gonna lose. Just doesn't add up.
We saw this happen with the Bengals last year, though. And it's like, shouldn't you have learned from your own division that it doesn't matter how much you score per game if your defense is so ass that, like, you feel like you have to score every time you walk out on the field? There was a stat. This is the most points through 3 games in NFL history for a team with a losing record.
Correct.
It's like, how do you win with this? I mean, you don't. That's the answer.
Yeah,
you play
don't.
Cleveland.
That's the answer, is you're putting up so many points. And I have so much trouble with people that point at Lamar, the receivers, or Derrick Henry, or the line. Like, dude, you're putting up 37 a game. Like, if you can't win with 37 a game, you can't win. Like, that's the end of that. And they just need to get better. The idea that they got better through personnel last year is troubling because now we don't know if Madubuike is coming back. He is their best front seven defender right now. And he's not sure if he's going to be back. Well, that doesn't leave us with a lot of certainty as Ravens fans that, hey, this is going to improve. Like, Zach Orr is going to have to make some changes. And to your point, he better make them sooner than week 11, because if they do, it's not going to be relevant. They're going to be out of it by that point, which is a real shame because this offense is awesome and operating at a very high level, and this defense is bouncing off the bottom and dragging them down, and that makes it really, really rough.
And then on the flip side, boy, this Chiefs offense is confusing.
Spotty at best.
You know, the weird part about it is all the criticisms are accurate, right? Like, Mahomes has been less consistent this year, you know, leading the league in off-targeting completions. There's a lot of just completely incomprehensible misses from him. You know, I don't want to say he's looked unsettled because his pass protection has been better. Like, Josh Simmons hasn't been perfect, but he's definitely been better what they had last year. So I don't want to say he's looked unsettled, but he has looked kind of sloppy when it comes to putting the ball exactly where he wants it to be. And yet he's 8th in big time throw percentage. And if you're looking at the explosives that this team has generated, they are 8th in overall explosives, 23 in the pass game. That's 3rd most explosives in the NFL so far. So it's like he's either having these kind of unforgivable misses or these unbelievable throws, some of them to Tyquan Thornton, who apparently is all of a sudden a good receiver. Who knew? Get away from New England and you can play football. I guess that's a lesson that we're constantly learning now. But, you know, that's what makes this team so frustrating is, like, they get bogged down by stupid shit. And they just have all these self-inflicted wounds and, you know, this philosophy offensively that they've had the same philosophy, honestly, for years at this point. They're very gun heavy. They don't run the ball in neutral run pass situations. They lean on the screen game. They lean on, the quick passing game to augment the run game. And then when they do run the ball, they run it out of the gun, and they're not very good at running out of the gun. So it's like, guys, you could just get under center. Like, you don't have to be bottom 5 in under center percentage again. And then, you know, throw your hands up as if you can't fix the run game when you're not lining up properly to run the ball, and you're trying to do all this, you know, inside zone from the gun, as if every defense on earth doesn't know how to stop inside zone from the gun. And they're like, well, we can't do it. And it's like, well, then do something else. Like, you don't have to run the ball that way. You can be better at it. You have offensive line talent. Your running backs aren't great, but, like, I mean, for God's sake, the Bears managed to do it with DeAndre Swift. Like, you can do it with Isaiah Pacheco. I promise you can do it. So it's these self-inflicted wounds in their own run game based on how they like to play football. It's these bad misses from Mahomes. And yet still, they've gotten a whole bunch of explosives. If you're looking at EPA per play, they're 11th in the NFL in EPA per play. Like, they look bad, and yet they're good. And they're 1-2, but they probably shouldn't be. And it's like, I know that there's a much better football team in there, which for Chiefs fans is both frustrating and also encouraging because they know that they're not playing anything like they should be. Like, if they were playing like themselves, they would be 3-0. And they're not playing like themselves, and that's the issue.
It feels to me like sculpture, right? You start with a big block of granite. You just take away all the stuff you don't need. And the Chiefs are just leaving all the stuff you need, and you're just left with a big block of granite. It doesn't look great. The run game's been spotty. If you take Mahomes rushing out, I think this is fascinating. They've averaged 3.75 yards per carry. That would only be good for 24th in the NFL. I've been saying for a couple of weeks now, like, the Chiefs offense is Patrick Mahomes running the football. And if you look at yard totals or anything else, that bears itself out. But if you just remove his rushing and just take the effectiveness of what they have left, it's 3.75 yards per game. And to your point, it's because of how they do it and how they approach it. The pass game hasn't been much better. It's 19th in yards per attempt. Now, that's averaged out with plays that are not very effective and those odd explosives, and you kind of end up in the middle. Oddly enough, 19th in yards per attempt is exactly where they ended up last year. So the pass game, although it looks different, is literally exactly the same as it was in 2024 in terms of effectiveness. Now, it picked up in the second half versus the Giants. That's bad news for the Ravens. It was largely to Tyquan Thornton. Other guys haven't popped off yet, again, in the absence of Rashee Rice and Jalen Royals and other folks that they were expecting to have at this point. They don't have them. The Chiefs are going to try and attack with Tyquan, but if Orr can shut him down, I know this sounds crazy, but like one double Tyquan as defense and just see how it goes. If he can do that, I actually like the matchups for the Ravens in this one, but I have so little confidence that Zach will actually do that.
As far as picks go,
it's a ridiculous span for picks in this one. Like the variance in this one is all over the board.
my mind is telling me Ravens because that's what makes sense. But my heart is telling me Chiefs because I just know. I just know. Like, they're going to drag him down into the mud, right? They're going to do the Chiefs thing. They're going to drag him down in the mud. And they're not going to neutralize the offense, but they're going to slow it down enough that they're going to be able to take advantage of that Ravens defense and make it a score for score type thing. And it'll probably be a slower pace game because that's what Kansas City wants. They do not want this to turn into a track meet because I don't think they'll be able to compete in that style of game. And I think they're gonna slow it down. They're gonna drag him into the mud where they're comfortable. It's gonna be like 4 minutes left. Casey's up by 2. Ravens got to get a stop, and then they're gonna get a chance if they can just get a stop for Lamar to go down and win the game. It's gonna be 3rd and 7. Rush is gonna fail. Mahomes is gonna take off. He's gonna slide down in bounds, give the point, and then the announcers are gonna vamp for the next 2 minutes while they kneel it out. Like I in my bones, I feel like that's going to happen. And maybe I'm wrong, but like if I'm a Ravens fan, would I have any confidence whatsoever that this defense could get a stop in the last 4 minutes when we really needed them to? I wouldn't think they could.
No, and Mahomes has a way of rising for these particular games when anybody says, "Oh, one of your rivals for one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL is approaching." He has a way of saying, and that does give me serious pause about this one. Throw everything else out.
Last game on the docket for the day, Panthers Patriots. This one might be significantly quicker because I think that this is a really, really tough matchup for the Panthers. And I think there's a lot of areas where the Patriots are better. Not that the Patriots are perfect, but specifically, I look at the Panthers just being okay at running the ball. They're not their dominant run game self that they have been in the past, and they're going up against a defense in New England that can really, really stop the run. If you're looking at their EPA per play against the run, they are 7th best. They are 2nd in terms of tackles for loss and no gain. They get in the backfield almost as often as the Jets do. As far as yards before contact per attempt allowed, New England basically just turns everybody else into the Raiders, who ironically they already did play. Negative 0.1 yards before contact per attempt. So they're in the backfield every single carry on average. And then yards after contact per attempt allowed. Again, it's not like a Jonathan Taylor stat here. They're at 2.5, which is 9th best in the NFL. So this team can stop the run. They can pass protect really well. Drake May has been up and down, I think is a fair characterization, but there's been more ups than downs. Mm-hmm. And the fact that they can pass protect really well, and the Panthers are another one of these teams that cannot rush the passer like at all. In fact, hold on, I have a stat for this. Even more
so do I.
Crazy. So it's not quite as bad as the Panthers or as the Dolphins one, but it's close. They have the 3rd fewest pressures in the league so far at 30. total, like not even just true drop back passes, like 30 total. And they only have a 3.3% conversion rate on turning those pressures into sacks. Also the worst in the NFL as far as conversion rate. The Dolphins at least like convert the few pressures they get into sacks. The Panthers don't get pressures and don't convert them. They have 1 sack as a team through 3 weeks, and they're going up against an offensive line that has been not elite in pass protection, but very good in pass protection, and they can stop the run. This is a bad matchup for Carolina.
I will see your abysmal Carolina pass rushing stat and raise you. Pass rush for the Panthers has come from 3 guys: Ashawn Robinson, DJ Wanham, and Princey Unmamielen. That's it. Nobody has more than 2, count them, 2 pressures in true pass set situations besides those 3. That's
like not
it.
even on accident. They didn't even just like fall into a pressure. Oh my God.
Yeah, we didn't even get like proximity data from, chips in pads that said you got close. Nope. That's it. So the Panthers have struggled on offense. They're not great on defense. On offense, the pass blocking has to improve. They've given up 33 pressures in true pass set situations. That's an average of 11 per week. Bryce has to play better when that protection does show up. These are 2 things that has to work in concert. The offensive line has to play better. Bryce has to play better if they allow him to do that. He's 30th in yards per attempt, 23rd in big time throw percentage, 20th in ADOT, tied for 11th worst in turnover worthy play percentage. If you want the good news, his pocket management's been pretty good. His pressure to sack percentage is 8th best, lowest among all QBs with 50 dropbacks. And it's probably because he's tied for the 10th fastest time to throw in 2.71 seconds. So he's getting it out quickly, which we know that's his style, point guard play. But he's had to. The run game, you mentioned it, it's been more of a hammer away approach, 3.7 yards per carry, which is 25th in the league. They're chipping away with outside zone, which made me think, I don't ever think of outside zone as a chip away option. I think of outside zone as like you're trying to get explosive plays, but they literally have been tagging away for like 3 and 4 yards per carry on outside zone. And Chuba is 28th among running backs with at least 25 carries. He only has 1 explosive in 49 carries. That's in all concepts, but a lot of those have been outside zone, and they're just looking for that 2 or 3 or 4 yards on the edge, which just kind of speaks to where they are in their offensive development. They're just not getting what you need, which are chunk plays, and offense in general has been a struggle. You look at the defense, obviously we talked about the pass rush. It hasn't been great. They're 3rd worst at stopping the run, 5.4 yards per carry. Only Chicago and Buffalo are worse on a per carry basis. They're 20th in turnover margin. They're just not a great football team right now. And if you look at the Patriots, like the Patriots are a better football team, and if they didn't turn the ball over, they might actually low-key be a good team.
Dude, okay, if I'm a Patriots fan, last game would have given me a fucking aneurysm.
Oh, like we know Patriots fans together who I wonder if they survived, and I had to text them.
I was watching the Texans-Jags game because it was on at the same time, which was like a hilariously bad experience. Like I said at the time, it's like, if you're in the middle of June and you're missing football, watch that Texans-Jags game from week 3. It'll cure you instantly. Like that was the worst football game ever. And yet still, I saw like the box score from the Patriots and like the difference in the yardage and the yards per play and everything. I'm like, how are they not up by 30? And then you look at turnovers and it's like, oh, they fumbled 5 times. And like, the Steelers just kept jumping on it. And they scored just enough to win. Meanwhile, the Steelers offense like couldn't find its ass from a hole in the ground the entire time, but they got so many turnovers, they won anyway. And I'm like, if I'm a Patriots fan watching that game, I am absolutely beside myself because there's no way on a normal Sunday they shouldn't have blown the Steelers out last weekend. And I know that Vrabel probably was chewing them out constantly because it's Mike Vrabel. And I have to assume that means they're going to be more buttoned up going forward. For their sake, I hope they are, because like Vrabel might actually kill people if they fumble 5 times again. But I look at what the Patriots are from like a play-by-play basis, and I look at what the Panthers have been on a play-by-play basis, and I say this even after they're coming off, blowing out the Falcons 30-0. When we talked about, Michael Penix's struggles, like, they didn't really do anything crazy to him. Like, he just kind of gave them the ball. And, he had 7 off-target incompletions. They should have been giving up a lot of explosives against a quarterback that was remotely accurate in that game or was seeing the field well. They would have given up a lot of explosives. Falcons fans are like, oh, Zach Robinson sucks at calling plays. I'm like, no, shit was open. Like, it was there. He just missed it. So it's like, I don't even think the Panthers defense had an amazing performance. It's just Michael Penix completely melted down. And when you also add in, like, their offense has been inconsistent to say the least. They have no pass rush. The Steelers probably should have gotten blown out by the Patriots last week. I think the Patriots on a per play basis, wow, sounded out, Brett, per play basis are way better. Like, this should not be a close game, in my opinion, which ultimately, knowing the Patriots, means it's going to be agonizingly close, but on paper, it shouldn't be.
I agree with you. They are worst in the league right now with fumbles lost per game at 1.3, which is twice as high as their rate from last year, which was 0.7. That just means you're giving the other team way too many chances. You mentioned it earlier that Drake is playing well. He's 5th in yards, tied for 7th in TDs, 8th in adjusted completion accuracy, 9th in NFL passer rating at over 100. The interesting thing about how they're asking Drake to play is they're not turning him loose. He only has 2 big-time throws, and he's 27th in big-time throw percentage, and he's 24th in ADOT in the league, average depth of target. So his pocket management also has been a little below average, and we've actually seen him be better than that in the past, but he is the 4th worst pressure to sack percentage in the league and the 11th highest time to throw right now. So they're asking him to sort of manage and do not too many things. And as I think about that, I was like, why? We saw more potential from him last year to let it off the chain. And then Vrabel. And Vrabel is asking him to do not too much. He's aiming for complementary football where they don't risk too much, snuff out the opposing team's run game. Stop me if you've heard this before, which they're doing. They're 2nd best in the league, allowing only 2.8 yards per rush, and then grind out wins. That's what Mike Vrabel wants to do right now with this young team. Problem is, if you do that, your margins are really thin because you're not going to outrace anybody on offense, and you better not make any mistakes on defense. And God forbid you fumble the ball or chuck it into the opponent's arms right near the end zone. If you do that, your margins disappear. Your head coach probably gets very mad at you in Monday film sessions, and you end up not with a W, but with an L. And yeah, when you look at where these two teams come into this game, where the Patriots are, where the Panthers are, game to game, down to down, this one might look close if you weren't paying a lot of attention, but if you look at it like matchup to matchup, I would be terribly surprised if the Patriots didn't win this game.
It's 2 more teams that are in the theme of the day, right? Which is like they should both be way better than they are.
Correct.
Like, quite frankly, they should be. The Patriots should be way better than they are, especially on paper. And the Panthers, like they got Derek Brown back, and they invested in the pass rush. And I get it, they've sustained some injuries, but it's like they made a lot of investments in their weaknesses over the offseason. Like, they should be better. It's just like Miami. They should be better than they are. So, the first 3 weeks of the season, they're always really exciting because you see the teams that kind of like emerge from the ashes and finally take that next step. And, like the Lions a few years ago, where it's like, oh yes, like they're finally here. Like the plan has come to fruition and it worked. And all of a sudden a new great team in the NFL is born out of being bad for years. And every single year you're looking at like a smattering of 10 different ball clubs that could be the new Lions, right? That could be really bad and then like emerge from the ashes and become what you always hoped and dreamed. And the Panthers were one of those 10 teams we looked at where it's like the pieces are there. Like they could do it this year. And to see the first 3 weeks, again, even coming off a 30-0 blowout against Atlanta. To see what they've been the first 3 weeks, I know there's more in there. Like, I know there's a lot more juice in that squeeze. They are nowhere close to playing as well as they could or should. And, maybe they come out and they play to their potential against New England. Like, that's totally possible. But as far as who I think right now is playing better football, it's the Patriots.
If you're looking at the defensive line matchup of the Patriots versus the offensive line matchup of Carolina, and I'm not talking about talent, I'm talking about production and where they are right now, I would be fearful for Bryce Young's safety right now, because the defensive line, with all their, again, investment in free agency and everything else, is paying off right now. They are making a mess of things for opposing offenses. And you flip it to the other side, Carolina Panthers offense is not playing up to the potential right now. Bryce is being pressured way more often than you would like him to be, and is going to have to run for his life. And if that's the case, I don't really care what your offense is or what your strategy was or what your first 25 plays were. You're just not going to have a great day.
So overall, I think obviously I'm picking the Patriots to win this game. Are you also picking New England?
I really think that outside of an act of God that derailed our podcast last week, the Patriots probably march in this one.
All right, that'll wrap it up for today's show. Reminder, we have 3 more games we're going to go over in our Patreon episode, which is like our bonus preview show. That'll come out the day after, whenever this one launches, whatever day that happens to be. Our editor, Neil, is a monster, so maybe this will come out Friday. I guess we'll see. And in the meantime, we thank you guys for watching this late. We also thank our executive producers over on the Patreon, Fitzy, Connor, Liam, Mike, Jack, Major, Owen, Patrick, and Spencer. Once again, we appreciate all of your support, and we will see you guys either on the Patreon tomorrow or back here on Tuesday. Later.